chair election, and as part of that, I actually get the meeting started, and then the first item for a regular vote is election of board chair. So as we get started, board members, if you would, please record your attendance. Board members, we have one member who is participating remotely, Mr. Elliot Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, would you please record your attendance?
Present.
There are 10 members present.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. If you would, please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Our next item on the agenda is election of school board chair. Do I have any nominations?
Mr. Golden,
Yes, sir. Mr. Wimberly.
I'd like to nominate Angela Durham.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Motion by Mr. Wimberly and a second by Mr. Cash for Miss Angela Durham. Are there any other nominations? Any discussion? Are we ready to vote? If you would, please record your votes. Yes for Miss Durham. Mr. Mitchell?
I vote yes for Ms. Durham.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
With that, Miss Angela Durham is elected chair of the board for this coming year. And ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we're going to be taking a small break for Ms. Durham to come to the chair, and then we will resume our meeting with the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Golden,
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing 10 yes, 2 absent. I believe it should be 11 no.
It's actually Mr. Galbraith and Mr. Hall are both absent.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Board. Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Next item on our agenda is election of the school board vice chair. Do I have a motion? Ms. Cleveland?
Josh Brown.
Josh Brown. Do I have a second? Mr. Cash? Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Okay, board members, we can cast our votes.
Can somebody please reread what the motion was?
Yes.
I was not able to hear.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, the motion was for Mr. Josh Brown.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, we'll take your vote now.
Yes, I vote for Josh Brown for vice chair.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passes for Mr. Brown. as vice chair. Thank you, board. Next item on our agenda is items of particular public interest, and we had a lot of interest in speaking to the board this month, so thank you to the public for showing up tonight. We did have 30 individuals show interest in speaking. It did require that we knock the time down to a minute per person, and so that will be loaded in the system. You'll be able to see that up on the screen as you come to the podium. So I will call everyone. I'll call you 2 at a time, but you don't have to come up. If you're the second person on the list, just stay seated and just know that you're up next. That's just to give you a heads up. Okay, our first speaker is Jody Smith.
I'd like to remind everyone this is Suicide Awareness Month. I'm a concerned mother of a student at Grassland Elementary in District 8 and a strong advocate for inclusivity and diversity within our community. I want to tell you about a recent news story from the Topeka Capital Journal, which underscores the importance of supporting teachers' rights to display symbols and acceptance and diversity, such as pride flags in their classrooms. In a Kansas town, 2 librarians and 2 library patrons took legal action against city officials who objected to rainbow displays during Pride Month, even though these colorful images were not directly associated with LGBTQ+ pride. Among these displays was a rainbow infinity symbol representing neurodiversity and autism awareness, as well as a colorful image featuring a disabled child, both of which city officials mistakenly believed promoted an LGBTQ agenda. This reminds us of the need to embrace a range of viewpoints and ensure that our educational spaces are welcoming to all, regardless of their backgrounds or identities. This lawsuit, filed in this case, argues that library patrons are entitled to a library that embraces diverse perspectives, not just viewpoints of those with reservations about rainbow colors or LGBTQ+ citizens. We must learn from these events and recognize symbols of diversity like pride flags are not about pushing any particular agenda, but about creating an environment where every student feels valued and respected. I implore the school board to consider the implications of this story and the importance of supporting teachers in creating a safe and inclusive environment for all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Bill Petty, and following Bill Petty is Emmy Moeller.
Thank you. We just pledged allegiance to the flag. I think the only flag we should have in a classroom other than the state flag. There are school districts around the country that are making policies about flags and demonstrations, and I'm going to read the preface from the Buck County policy. Neutrality and balance in the classroom instructions are desired in order to create an optimal learning environment and atmosphere of inclusiveness, where all students are welcome. Because views and beliefs about partisan, political, and social policy matters are often deeply personal, employees should not, during assigned work hours, advocate to students concerning their views or beliefs on these matters. Such advocacy does not contribute to a positive learning climate and may be disruptive, divisive, and distracting. Rather, classroom instruction should relate to approved curriculum. The district's role is to teach students how to think, not what to think, thereby keeping classrooms as places of education, not indoctrination. I sent a copy of the whole policy to everybody on the board. You've had a chance to look at it. I hope you will consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emmy Moeller, followed by Amelia Croney.
Hello, my name is Emmy Moeller, and I'm a student at Centennial High School in Franklin, and I am representing Woco Iris. It is common knowledge that living in an environment that is not supportive can take a toll on just about anyone. For LGBTQ youth, living in an environment that is not accepting is often a harsh reality. Whether it be at home, in peer groups, or in religious settings, most young members of the LGBTQ+ community are forced to be in spaces that aren't supportive or are even hateful towards them. Having pride flags in schools is a small way to communicate to LGBTQ+ students that schools can be a safe space for them. As an LGBTQ student myself, seeing a pride flag in my classroom tells me that my teacher is a safe person that I can go to, and that I will be supported and accepted by them in general. At the end of the day, pride flags do not harm anyone, but they may help someone, and that is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amelia Croney, followed by Laura C.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Croney. I am currently a senior at Brentwood High, and I've attended Williamson County Schools since kindergarten. My experience in this environment has allowed me to reach the top of my class as a happy, well-adjusted individual and represent my county as a National Merit finalist. I will be speaking against the discussions over removing pride flags from schools. In truth, I scarcely ever encounter pride flags at school. However, when I do, I am filled with a sense of relief. They let me know that I do not have to be continuously wary about speaking of my identity. Additionally, a displayed pride flag serves as protection from bullying. It lets students who would wish to cause me physical or verbal harm on the basis of my identity know that hate will not be tolerated. It is recognized that LGBTQ youth face significantly worse mental health and suicide risk due to isolation and harassment. Pride flags displayed in schools aid to lift this burden in a subtle but highly appreciated way. Therefore, as a student of Williamson County Schools, I am against the removal of pride flags. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura C., followed by Spencer List.
My name is Laura C. I'm a resident of Franklin and a proud product of the Williamson County Schools. The most valuable thing I learned in our excellent school system was the diversity of identities, experiences, and ideas my classmates, teachers, and I brought to our classrooms. I learned alongside classmates whose families, religious beliefs, and backgrounds were quite different from my own. And these skills and learning how to get along with people from all different walks of life have served me really well in my life and career. I'm disturbed by recent trends in this county where a small group of mostly newcomers are trying to impose a vision of what they seem to think the Williamson County Schools are: exclusive, bigoted, and downright mean. With this ugliness, they seem to be determined to make a national embarrassment of Williamson County Schools, this time by wanting to ban small flags in teachers' classrooms. Seriously, are we going to police the small personal touches that every teacher puts in their classroom? Look at every picture, support for a football team, whatever? This is nuts, and I hope that the board will stand with the values that I was raised with, true Williamson County values of kindness, welcome, and room for difference, values supported by the vast majority of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Spencer List, followed by Melanie McDaniel.
Hi, my name is Spencer List, and I'm a senior at Independence High School. A teacher who displays a pride flag sends the message that their classroom is an environment in which students who are not heterosexual or cisgendered are valued. A pride flag's purpose within a school is not to impose political ideology, but to encourage and support diversity, equity, and inclusion. A flag does not impose a certain sexuality or gender upon those who see it, but reminds them that not everyone around them is heterosexual or cisgendered. A pride flag allows LGBTQ+ students to feel safe and supported by a teacher, not favored. A teacher acknowledging one group of students does not inherently mean that another group is not valid. Being LGBTQ+ in Williamson County is often an isolating experience, so even something as simple as a pride flag can help those students not feel so alone. It can be a sign to a student that their teacher is someone they can come to in times of need, that their classroom is a place where they can be themselves, that they are protected from bullies. Salvador Dali said, what is more important is to spread confusion, not eliminate it. There is nothing to be gained from eliminating LGBTQ+ representation from schools. Students already know it exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies, Melanie McDaniel is not here tonight, so their next speaker is Eve Boger, followed by Amy Duncan.
My name is Eve Boger, and I'm here tonight representing Wilco Iris, a nonprofit organization that provides a safe space for queer youth and their allies and serves students throughout this district. I'm here to urge you to listen to LGBTQ plus students who are telling you that seeing a pride flag in the classroom really matters to them, to their mental well-being, and to their perceived safety from bullying at school. These visual affirmations are not part of any curriculum or teaching or discussion, nor are they a political statement. You will hear requests tonight from outside groups advocating for this board to enact a policy delineating what flags and symbols should be banned in the classrooms. I would caution the board against enacting any type of policy that is pushed by outside groups. Allowing outside groups to dictate school board policy sets a dangerous precedent. Please do not cave to this knee-jerk reaction, and instead, let's focus, as we always have at Williamson County Schools, on building tolerance and inclusion amongst diverse groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Duncan, followed by Becca Ripley.
Hi, my name is Amy Duncan, and I'm the mom of 4 kids. And for the past 16 years, we've lived here and raised our kids here in Williamson County and Franklin and Brentwood. As our kids have grown up, they've looked around to find out where they belong. And for my LGBT kid, have a pride flag in their classroom has meant a lot. They look around, they feel insecure. They are struggling to find where they fit in and who their people are. So it really means a lot. And so I would just urge y'all to listen to these students that are speaking to you tonight and to hear from me as a mom that this is not a flag that represents sex. This is a flag that represents belonging, love, inclusion. And so I just urge you to listen to the students. Thank you for your time tonight. I work with Wilco Iris as well, and we want to be a resource to you guys. And so if you ever want to hear from our students, and we would love for you to hear from our students, please reach out and don't hesitate. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Becca Ripley, followed by Avery Cloud.
Hi, I'm Becca Ripley, a parent of 2 Grassland students. I'm here tonight for the same reason as everyone else. I want our students to feel safe, confident, and comfortable in their educational institutions and in our Williamson County community at large. I have deep concerns regarding the safety and support of our LGBTQ plus community members, especially our young ones. For this reason, I fly a pride flag in my yard. Last month, my children and I pulled into our driveway to find all of our signs stolen and our inclusive pride flag beaten to the ground. I had to report a hate crime to the police. Did I feel hated? Not really, but I only had to imagine that residents of my home were part of the LGBTQ plus community. We have a responsibility to make our vulnerable community members less vulnerable. We need to lead with compassion and acknowledgement of who they are, that they belong, and that they're loved for who they are. There's no shortage of guidance available for talking to children in age-appropriate ways about the pride flag. You can find all kinds of helpful information. For example, that PRIDE is an acronym standing for Personal Rights and Defense and Education. You know what? I was just going to quote some kids, but we've got live ones doing it right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Avery Cloud, followed by Lucy Wingo.
Hi, my name is Avery Cloud. I'm a senior at Franklin High School, and I represent Wilco Iris. And when I walk around school, I constantly have to look over my shoulder just to make sure that I fit in with the other students. But when I walk into a classroom and my teacher has a pride flag up in their room, I know that I have a space in that school that I can go to truly be myself. Seeing a pride flag has no negative effect on any student, the same way seeing a Spanish flag in your Spanish teacher's room has no negative effect on a student. Most students don't even notice these pride flags, but those that do are given a sense of security with the teacher that has it displayed. Something as simple as a pride flag has allowed me to be more comfortable with the teachers that have helped me through high school, and there's no sensible reason to ban something that doesn't display any kind of negative message and does not have any kind of negative effect. It's not about persuasion, it's not about indoctrination, it's about welcoming and acceptance. Please listen to the people that are actually in your schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lucy Wingo, followed by Lisa Churich.
My name is Lucy Wingo. I'm an 18-year-old student at Franklin High School. I'm here as not only a student, but as a representation of many students who are tired. I don't want to be standing here right now, but I am, because this group of people continues to antagonize and belittle an already marginalized minority of students that are just minding their business. I guarantee anybody listening that the removal of the very few pride flags represented at WCS schools is not going to change anything about the LGBTQ plus population at any of these schools. It will only make them feel even more unsafe than they already have. So now, as children and students, we have to step up and become the adults that provide these children with a safe and accepting community where they don't feel threatened or endangered. Because spouting this rhetoric and this appeal about the influence of our community has been done time and time again. These kids are already bullied. What on earth gives you the right to come here and make our lives, and to take time out of our lives just to reemphasize the fact that we are not welcome? We're not going anywhere. We have a strong community full of love and acceptance and equality, and I am grateful for the LGBTQ plus community that Williamson County has provided me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Churich, followed by Elliot Franklin.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Lisa Church. My boys went through Brentwood Schools, Scales, Brentwood Middle, Brentwood High. Loved them. Name me a teenager that doesn't have angst. Hormones are surging, trying to figure out who they are, where they're going, what they're going to be. Why in the world do we need to have a pride flag in the classroom to make kids feel like they're safe? Doesn't that mean that the teachers that don't choose to put a pride flag up are unsafe? Why do we have unsafe teachers in Williamson County? Oh my. Political action committees, PACs. We don't need to have any politics. Pride PAC. Well, it says politics to me. Equality PAC. Equity PAC, Ricky's Pride. Human Rights Campaign, and the Black Lives Matter PAC. We do not need politics in the classroom. We do not need teachers being pitted against each other because one chooses to have a flag and another one doesn't. Every teacher needs to make students feel safe. We do not need flags in the classroom.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Elliot Franklin, followed by Rory Rotzchalk.
Good evening. TCA 49-6101 sets forth certain requirements regarding the Pledge of Allegiance and the display of the American flag in Tennessee public schools. The U.S. flag represents unity, freedom, equality, patriotism, courage, sacrifice, hope, and resilience. However, other flags in the classroom, such as the pride flag, could be distracting and might even cause increased bullying. Last week alone, 2 school boards approved a new flag policy for all school buildings in Temecula and Central Glen, California, that only the U.S. and state flags be allowed. I ask that WCS consider a similar policy. Speaking of bullying, I noticed at the work session a few members mentioned bullying statistics might be incorporated into the superintendent's annual goals. I think that's a great idea, and there was also mention of cyberbullying, which again I think should be included. However, there are current board members who have been reported to the chair and the board attorney for cyberbullying with screenshots, and nothing is done. We also have sitting board members who continue to harass community members, such that one neighbor even had to relocate. Nothing was done. I look forward to hearing your positive resolution to these items in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rory Rotzchalk, and followed by Ashley Webster.
I just want to speak to the same issue that everyone is speaking to tonight from a different point of view. The United Nations and several of its agencies, the World Health Organization, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, the U.S. Department of Justice, the National Education Association, the American Library Association, the American School Counselor Association, and many others really, are all at work to promote the concept of childhood sexual education, which even has its own acronym, CSE, as appropriate for public school children. It seems to me the Pride community has attached itself to this concept as well, considering childhood as the appropriate time and the public schools as an appropriate location, appropriate setting to introduce their particular set of ideas. In my opinion, when displayed in a classroom, a pride flag represents agreement with the idea that the public school classroom is an appropriate location for the sexualization of children. The significant list of organizations mentioned, I think my time's out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Our next speaker is Ashley Webster, followed by Stephanie Bishop.
Hi, I'm Ashley Webster. I live in Franklin, and my kids attended Williamson County Schools. I do think Moms for Liberty is funded by a PAC, so I'm confused by that remark earlier. And I think child sexual education is about preventing child abuse, so we'll get back to that. Depending on where they fly, flags can represent freedom or control, danger or safety. A red flag on a beach means it's not safe to swim. A white flag on a battlefield means it's time to surrender. A pennant flag might bear the name of a person's alma mater or the college their child goes to. These are symbols, like the ones we might wear on a lapel pin or sticker on our car. People who are in the same group recognize it and they feel a shared sense of belonging. These 6 colors, arranged just like this, can be a symbol for the gay and queer community. For those of you who remember when MTV very first went on the air, it can also be confused for the color bars on cable TV. But when a symbol of this size is posted among a teacher's personal effects, it shows students that they're safe. My brother did not come out till he was 34 years old because he did not have these symbols. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Bishop, followed by Matthew Spencer. No Stephanie Bishop? Okay, sorry.
My name is Stephanie Bishop. I'm actually a Franklin High graduate many moons ago, but still reside here and had a son who just graduated last year from Centennial. But I'm also a mom, and I'm a mom for liberty because I believe in freedom for all people, not just the select group that I agree with. And I believe in keeping kids safe. Our schools have children who are marginalized for reasons that include their sexual preference. They do not feel safe, as do the majority of the population who do not lack affirmation, who are in fact safe. I appreciate a teacher's recognition that all kids have a right to feel safe, and I honor teachers exercising this freedom and their right to express as much. Placing a flag in a room is a small gesture to tell a marginalized child they are seen, they are safe, and it's a huge step toward creating a better learning environment for that child. To remove that flag would be taking an intentional step to remind that child that they should remain in the margin, that they should remain hidden, and that they are not safe. My opinion on what the child thinks of their sexuality is not my business, but protecting them in school so they can learn should be all our business and this board's business. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Spencer, followed by Genevieve Pejos.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to speak in support of a teacher's First Amendment right to have a pride flag in their classroom. Regardless of whether you believe, as I do, that who someone loves or how they choose to identify themselves is nobody's business but their own, or whether you have a different point of view on it, the fact is that the First Amendment applies to everyone, and that includes teachers. This teacher was not teaching anything or discussing anything off curriculum. They simply had a flag that expresses a different point of view than what some parents share, but that other parents do. That is the teacher's right under the First Amendment, just like it is those parents' right to have the differing point of view. If the school board took actions to require the teacher to remove the flag, that would be the government overreaching and treading on the rights of the individual. And where does that stop? Is it flags in classrooms? Is it bumper stickers on cars that come on school property? Is it teachers? Is it parents who have those bumper stickers? I've had plenty of conversations with my kids, the most interesting of which was, what does Let's Go Brandon mean? Flags, bumper stickers, all of these things, they are present. They are conversations that we have to have, and what we need to tell our students and our children is that in this country, we value the rights of other people to disagree with us.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Genevieve Pejos, followed by Marie Fellhauer. Yep, if everybody could hold applause until maybe all speakers are done, that would help me facilitate and help everybody be able to hear their names called. So this speaker is Genevieve Pejos, and our next speaker is Marie Fellhauer.
I urge the school board to stand for unity and not division. I am here tonight because we are seeing flags that promote sexuality, gender ideology, and racial division popping up in classrooms throughout our county. In my daughter's school, I know of a math teacher as well as a STARS counselor that had it on display. I am not here demanding that you put flags up in classrooms that express straight pride or my personal religious beliefs. I am not here to attack anyone's personal beliefs or lifestyle choices. I am here asking that we show mutual respect for each other's beliefs. It is my recommendation that the school board do what many have done throughout the country and put a policy in place allowing only the American and state flags in classrooms, flags that truly unite us all. Regardless of your gender, race, religion, or sexuality, we are all united and represented under the American flag. I don't understand how this is controversial. It is very simple. When in a public school setting that is paid for with tax dollars, personal beliefs, ideologies, religion should not be pushed on other people's children. I again urge the school board to stand for unity and not division. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marie Fellhauer, followed by Tristina Kraft.
Good evening. My name is Marie Fellhauer. I'm the Williamson County Group Leader for Moms for America, and I also have a child in the Williamson County School District. I find it interesting that in my professional career, if colleagues were to talk about sex in the workplace, it was considered sexual harassment and could cause a hostile work environment under the federal equal employment opportunity laws meant to protect the work environment. Shouldn't we extend that same protection to our children and their learning environment? Furthermore, flags displayed in schools should be inclusive rather than exclusive. For example, the American flag, since nearly all students are American, or at very least being educated in America by American schools. Values are taught and discussed in the home by parents and family. Let's protect our children. Sex and sexual desire should not be discussed between teacher and student, but rather between a parent and their child. As was codified in 1979, that the U.S. Department of Education was established by law, and a key highlight was parents have the primary responsibility for education of their children.
Thank you. We have 3 remaining speakers. They are Tristina Kraft, and then Deborah Bernal, and then Lynn Holcomb.
Good evening. My name is Tristina Kraft, and I'm a resident of Franklin and a mother of a 2nd and a 4th grader. I am here tonight to speak in opposition of the pride flag in classrooms and specifically anywhere on school grounds. Why is there a flag displayed in a publicly funded school that announces someone's sexual preference or ideology? You hear the debate that pride's flag represents unity and creates a safe place for all to be welcome. There is nothing that creates unity in this flag. In fact, it creates a divisive and hostile representation that one group is superior to others. The U.S. flag represents all of us here in the United States of America and is a country we pledge our respect and allegiance to, by which this and the state of Tennessee flag are the only flags flown and displayed at any school or publicly funded grounds. We see what is happening all over our country, and sadly, the attempt in our own backyard to try and push an ideology on our children, the very vulnerable fabric of our society. Announcing your sexual preference and your gender ideology belongs in the home, not an educational institution. We do not pay our taxes to our teachers, administrators to push their views, thoughts, feelings, or whatever on our children and students. The classroom is non-biased, neutral public setting where the only matter that should be conducted is a teach-approved curriculum, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 2 speakers, and I was just notified that we have 2 individuals who did check in, and those are Ramonte Hamer and Heather Boulan. I'm going to go ahead and proceed with Deborah Bernal next, and then Lynn Holcomb, and then we'll call up our final 2.
Williamson County School Board, it has come to my attention that your vice chair is the VP of State and Government Relations at Pfizer. My name is Debbie Bernal, and I am one of the 2 whistleblowers at Pfizer that helped reveal the link between myocarditis and the mRNA vaccine. I also helped expose Dr. Jordan Tristan Walker, who is on camera saying, I quote, "Why don't we mutate the virus ourselves?" End quote. Quote, "That is not what we say to the public," end quote. Quote, "COVID is a cash cow," end quote. "A revolving door for government officials. It's good for the pharmaceutical industry." That's you, Mr. Vice Chair. "But bad for America," end quote, because, quote, "the regulators are not going to be as harsh on Pfizer." So my question today for the Vice Chair, and I'm sure all of the parents here of Williamson County would like to know, does Jordan Tristan Walker still work at Pfizer? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lynn Holcomb, followed by Ramonte Hamer, and our last speaker will be Heather Bulin.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lynn Holcomb, and I had 4 kids, all went through the Williamson County Schools as well. I live in Brentwood now. I am also here to speak in opposition of pride flags being in the classroom. I do not believe, I have a number of educators and principals all over the country in my family, and I just don't believe teachers should advocate to students regarding their personal beliefs on any political or social policy matter, which would include displaying a flag in their classroom that advocates a certain political or social policy issue. Our school district's role is to teach our students how to think, not what to think. And Williamson County did a great job teaching my kids how to think, but we should never start teaching our kids what to think. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ramonte Hamer, followed by Heather Bulin.
So Ramont Hamer. Senator Kennedy last week, he had a hearing, and at that hearing he read aloud 2 books. One, Genderqueer, another was All Boys Aren't Blue. And he read an excerpt that said, little boy gingerly got on his knees and prepared to suck his first penis. It was meant for children. Now, there was an individual at the panel that spoke up and said, Senator Kennedy, your definition of sexual is actually synonymous with LGBTQ identity. That is a flag as well that we want to hang in a classroom. So to that I say this, y'all. Would I hear a request from people to allow adult teachers not related to these students, therefore strangers, to affirm the sexual proclivities of a minor in a place specifically designed for learning? This is a moral issue. This is not just a flag. American flag can hold everyone. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Heather Bulin.
Hello, my name is Heather Bulin, and I'm here tonight to bring awareness to an issue happening near my home in the Trinity Elementary School area. At the beginning of the month, construction began. We went down and read the boards. The permit said there was a waterway TDOT project happening due to the Highway 96 road widening project. Several days later, pulling out of my neighborhood, there was a 200-foot monopole cell tower that had been put up, even though we didn't receive any notice that this would be happening. We spent the next week, kind of neighbors and I, trying to figure out why did they pick this place. It's right on the corner of the elementary school, adjacent to the baseball and softball fields and across from my neighborhood. And we found out that the county received funding to create wireless broadband throughout the county. I immediately started researching implications of that tower being so close to the school, and I was really shocked that credible organizations like the American Cancer Society, American Academy of Pediatrics, and the World Health Organization Institute for Cancer all agree that the studies that we have funded that are very credible are inconclusive, and we just don't have evidence right now that these towers are safe. I'm asking you to support the mayor, who agrees we should move it to the back of the property away from the school.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you to every public speaker who came tonight, and I realize that even condensing your commentary down to a minute is tough, and everybody did that, so I really appreciate your efforts there, and thank you so much again for showing up. Our next item, and if you guys are desiring to stay for the meeting, yep, you're welcome to stay, or if you're desiring to leave after public comment, you are welcome. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, she's on the list. You are on the list. Yeah, we didn't have you checked in.
You're supposed to check in, guys.
Don't start yet. Thanks.
These board members, do we have any objection to allowing unchecked members of the public to go ahead and speak if they've not checked in? Yes, sir. Mr. Wimberly. An unchecked in member of the public. They're supposed to check in prior to the meeting if they've signed up to speak at the meeting. If they
May we ask the council if there's a legal reason to or not to? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I can
Thank
start,
you.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Carol Newhauser, and I was here last month, and I'm again speaking. I think we have to take our minds off those issues about young children. And I'm sharing today, I'm sharing with you parts of the email that I sent to Dr. Sarah Morrison, Executive Director of the Tennessee Board of Education, because it is a concise review of what we were discussing last month. According, and this may be a repetition, according to brain research, children are not physically able to think logically until the age of 8, which is where a subject matter curriculum should begin, not K-3. I am proposing a human growth and development curriculum which creates the needed brain structure for a subject matter curriculum. Until the brain has developed this internal structure to think logically, much of the learning is memorization, not understanding. All children in the primary grades need more hands-on, concrete experiences because the brain has not been fully developed.
Thank you.
Children with, I'll just show you my BA. This is what people say, what is concrete experience? This is something that's concrete experience.
Thank you.
4 senses. You can touch it, you can see it, you can move it. This is what we are giving our K-1 people, not all of them, but some of many.
Thank you, Miss.
Many.
Thank you, Miss Niehaus.
Okay.
We'll have to.
Not. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Did we have someone else who signed up? Can you?
Didn't sign your thing out there.
No. You signed up to speak today?
I would like to.
We have to be on the confirmed list. Yeah.
I signed up in advance and called in, and the lady called me back.
Gotcha. Can I? Yeah. If I can get your name, I'll check the sign up list real quick. Okay. Thank you. What's your name? Robin?
I don't think Miss Steen made the cutoff.
I don't have you. Sorry, Robin. Yep. What was your name? Danielle. I think I saw your name.
Yes.
Yes, I gotcha. Danielle.
I have to say, I came in this way. The custodian saw me outside. He said, I'm going to let you come in this easy way so you don't have to walk around.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, hi. I'm here tonight because I don't think it's appropriate for government employees in our public schools to promote sexual lifestyles to children. There's clearly a mainstream movement in our country to move sexual ideology or to push sexual ideology on children. My professional background is in healthcare, including healthcare policy from my time working at a prominent medical association in Washington, D.C. When I say pushing sexual ideologies, I want you to understand I mean exactly that. This is an ideology originating in the field of sexology with horrific roots, including the abuse of children. The terms of gender identity and gender role were first coined by Dr. John Money, a sexologist. His work to prove his perverse hypothesis included raising a young man with mutilated genitalia as a woman woman and forcing that young man to engage in simulated sex with his brother as they were growing up. Both men later killed themselves. The ideologies being pushed on our children today are rooted in that work. That's the science that supports these notions. Do you think it's appropriate for government employees to push those ideologies on our children? Obviously, it's not. The flying of any flags other than the U.S. or Tennessee state flags should be banned. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you again to everyone who came for public comment. We are now moving on to our items on the agenda. First item is the approval of the agenda. Do I have any motions for the approval of the agenda? Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Welch. And do I have a second? Mr. Priya, thank you. Any discussion over the agenda tonight? The board, so I can see the names. Super, thank you. Okay, no discussion, board members. Mr. Golden, do we have?
I do recommend approval.
Board members, you can cast your votes. And Mr. Mitchell, we'll accept your vote now.
My vote is to approve. Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. We have approval to move forward with our agenda. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Thank you, Mr. Welch. And any discussion? Okay. No discussion. We can move on to vote.
Recommend approval.
Mr. Mitchell, we'll take your.
My vote is to approve. Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. And with the approval of the consent agenda, we approved the August 21st, 2023 school board meeting minutes, the board policies for second reading, code of conduct, approval of collaborative conferencing team, the calendar committee membership, the budget preparation timeline, the E-Plans IDEA partnership for systemic change, the approval of the E-Plans Rescue Plan Act funds, and recommendation for field trip fee requests. Next item on the agenda is the communications to the board. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, board members. I spent maybe an hour or so at our work session giving a superintendent's report. We touched on a number of issues that we know are coming from the state level, had some discussions about county government issues, including some of the work they're doing to fund a new juvenile detention facility and an ALC. And we also spoke to some of our issues here with our school board. I'm not going to go back through those. Certainly encourage those of you who are here to go back and look at our work session if you'd like to go through some of that detail. I do want to mention a few things. First of all, I want to reiterate what our chairwoman said when she spoke to our public comment. Thank you all for your comments. It is important for this school board, and it's been true for many, many years, that we do open the floor for public comment. And it's not restricted based on topics that are on the agenda, but it's a broad opening. And many of you mentioned questions about particular policies, and there's nothing on tonight's agenda. Certainly encourage you all to stay engaged and involved in everything we do. It's interesting to me that the state law actually was passed just this past year requiring public comment at voting meetings, and our board has been doing it for years. So we do continue to encourage you all to share. From a substantive standpoint, we know that from the board perspective, the question that largely was discussed today is related to the First Amendment and the parameters that we have under the federal government. And I encouraged you all at our work session to have conversations with our attorneys who advise us on constitutional issues, and we're going to continue to seek that advice to make sure that we as a public entity operate within the parameters that are established for us under the Constitution, because we all know that that's our responsibility, and in fact, that's part of the oath that we've taken for the work that we do, that we'll make sure we honor that, honor the Constitution. Again, we had some discussion about that at the work session, and I encourage folks to review that. And I know some of you members have had those conversations directly with our board attorneys, and I certainly encourage you to continue to do that as these important issues that reflect the national discussion come up from time to time in schools. And I want to also finally acknowledge in that context, we appreciate folks talking to the school board because what we're doing here is important, and we want to continue to hear from our community about those issues that are important to you as well, because we recognize the importance of that. It's interesting that one of the items that we've heard from our county government is that people come here for the schools, and we want to make sure that we're good stewards of the work that's been done before us to make sure we continue that aim towards excellence. To that point, I want to let you know that Dr. David Snowden from Franklin Special School District and I are giving our annual State of the Schools report to the chamber members the day after tomorrow at a lunch meeting. Certainly encourage those of you who have already gotten those tickets, I suppose, to attend. That's one upcoming item that we have that is a significant share, especially for us, over the course of each year. I want to mention a couple of celebrations that we had just recently. We last night, actually yesterday afternoon, had our ribbon cuttings for our 2 new elementary schools. Thank you, board members, for coming. Those were great events as we celebrated our 2 new schools in the Arrington area and in Spring Hill at Arrington Elementary and Amanda North Elementary. And just before the meeting, we had the Brentwood Choir sing and celebrate with us. So we actually don't have any student or staff spotlights this month. For those of you who are in attendance every month, we celebrate state or national awards for our students and our faculty members. We know that we have had 81 students named National Merit semifinalists, but we wait to celebrate until the finalist list has come out. So we'll make sure we do that when that time comes. So with that, I committed to myself I was going to keep my superintendent's report short since we've spent so much time at the work session, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Golden. Next item on the agenda is the board chair report, and I just want to say thank you again to the board for your vote tonight as your board chairman. I'm very honored and humbled to be your board chairman. And want to also just review voting procedures because we have had some discussion about the voting procedures, and I don't think we've ever really talked about the process. In fact, I had to learn this last year sitting up here, so I thought it would be a good opportunity for anyone interested to understand the voting procedures and let you know that I'm going to tweak just a little bit the way we've been doing it, if it's okay with the board, just from a process perspective. Thank you to Mr. Wimberly for talking through this last time with me. But typically what we'll say is the next item on the agenda is something, so next item coming up will be new business. Then we will say, do we have a motion? And that's typically been our process throughout the year. And then we'll open the floor for discussion. And by the way, after we get the motion, we have to get that second motion. Open the floor for discussion, have that discussion. If there's no further discussion, we'll ask Mr. Golden for his recommendation, and then the board will proceed to a vote. That's been the typical process. There is some preference to move Mr. Golden's recommendation up underneath the voting matter before we open the floor for a motion, because it could actually impact the motion or even discussion items. So moving up Mr. Golden's recommendation before motion and discussion. So if the board is not opposed, I'm just going to make that slight tweak in process to grab Mr. Golden's recommendation first. Ms. Apriya?
I just have a question. If there were to be conversation that would possibly change the recommendation after the original motion is made, would that impact things, or would we get a new recommendation after the conversation?
That's a great question, and I know Mr. Wimberly has always been a good one about even asking for a follow-up recommendation after some long discussion. So I would imagine, yes, we should still get a follow-up recommendation in case Mr. Golden changes his mind after the discussion. Okay, and then Mr. Mitchell, we see you with your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm kind of in agreement with Ms. Apriya there that a lot of times the discussions and the comments are directed towards Superintendent Golden, right? And so if he offers his opinions at the beginning, then I feel like we're kind of at a battle to truly engage him in the discussion as well, or at least to potentially sway his opinion to that of where each individual board member who is making a comment would like his opinion to go. So I don't have a problem with the way we've been doing it, and it does kind of come after our discussions, and it allows him to add his opinion at the end as well. But at a minimum, if we're going to start the discussion with Mr. Golden's guidance or opinion, then maybe we need, are we going to close the discussion with his afterthoughts as well? And then does that not kind of take away from really what the board is here to do in the first place, which is kind of make decisions that, speaking on behalf of the community, with Mr. Golden's guidance included. So that's kind of, I'm a little hesitant to change how we've been doing it, but I'll follow whatever approach Madam Chair would like to take here.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Cash, I'll let you follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I kind of agree with Elliot. We all know coming out of the work session what's going to be discussed. We may change our mind a little bit, but I don't think Mr. Golden should be given his opinion in the beginning and then coming back and giving it again. That could sway opinions, may or may not making it a true board decision, if you will.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Welch?
Interesting idea both ways. I can see the benefits to both in understand Mr. Cash's point about swaying opinions, but I don't have a problem with that. I think taking the superintendent's opinion into consideration, if that sways something, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I do wonder about having the conversation and the debate in more of a neutral environment at the get-go, at the outset of it, rather. The question I have on it is, very often with these discussions, there's amendments made to and changes in direction. So if we have the superintendent's recommendation and then an amendment is made, that changes what he's been asked to make a recommendation on. And so what happens in those cases, I would say, would invalidate recommendation at that point.
Brown?
Thank you. I don't have an issue with doing that. I guess the question I would ask is the information or the item that's on the agenda presumably is on there because the superintendent has put it on there. So are we starting with an assumption that an item on here is something that he's recommending by virtue of the fact that it's on the agenda? Is that a built-in assumption?
If I may speak to that, often that's the case. I don't know that it's 100%. There may be some requirement of a particular vote. But to your point, very often that is. For what it's worth, Mr. Cash's comments have been my experience as well, that we have some discussion at the work session, and we have a pretty good idea of those items that might be potentially a debatable item versus something that's become a routine based on the discussion. I will say I suspect I've contributed to this a little bit because sometimes I'll just say recommend approval for what appears to be a routine item and then wait for some others. So I think one issue that our chair was looking to standardize was in essence to go one way or the other with that rather than have that judgment call.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have another question or comment?
Mute. Yes, if I can get off of mute. Thank you, Madam Chair. So one final thought here is that if I feel like if Jason gives his recommendation at the before debate on the formal debate has been done, then is he not kind of implying that the debate carries no weight with him? And so maybe he can give some guidance, or he can give some opinions and hold a recommendation to the end. But if Jason is an employee and a report of this full board, and for him to give his recommendation before he hears the formal feedback from his board, in my opinion, kind of diminishes the value of our feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Great points. And Ms. Cleveland?
Yes, I agree with Elliot there. There have been times where we are assuming just through the work session that the superintendent's going to approve the recommendation. But through our discussions, he has realized that maybe we have to go back to the drawing board. And so then he changes his opinion at the end based on our debate and realizes, well, this is something we really have to think about again, go back to the drawing board, to the work session, and redo it. And so that's why I think the value of the recommendation at the end of the debate versus prior.
Thank you. Ms. Clements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity, when we hear Superintendent Golden's opinion on how we should vote, that is not policy, but school board norm, correct? Okay. And so I just wanted to iterate that. And also, I kind of agree with Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Cleveland that I kind of like it on the back end, just because I think it gives a chance to hear, especially after the work session, to hear our debate here too. So, thoughts?
Since I guess I brought this up, I frankly don't care where his recommendation is. We're the school board. We can always ask him questions throughout, and we have the final say because we have the vote. What I do think is important, though, is that we get a brief explanation from the superintendent about what the item is. It benefits the public. It benefits us. Whether he gives a recommendation then or later, I don't know that it really matters, in my opinion.
Okay, so it sounds like the majority of the board is okay with the process we've been following, which is keeping Mr. Golden's recommendation further down in the process. So keeping that after we've had some discussion and let him weigh in on his recommendation we'll just take like a show of hands. Do we want to keep it as is the way we've been doing this process? If that's cool, yeah. Okay, I see Elliot's hand, nice and big. Okay, if that, we'll just stay as is, and if at any point in time we need to make an adjustment, please let me know, and we can always ask Mr. Golden for his opinion before we enter into discussion as well. Okay, thank you for that. We just wanted to clarify that the process is indeed helpful to you as you make important decisions. Okay, and that is all I have. Sorry for the extended report. Next item on the agenda is new business, and the first item under new business is the 2023-2024 school board budget, and under that is the approval of the general purpose school fund public school safety grant in the amount of $1.7 million. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, as it shows, a $1.7 million and change grant for safety. This is one of the commitments the state of Tennessee's legislature made to increase funding for school safety in this most recent legislative season. A large portion of this grant will be used towards access controls, and we had some other shares earlier at the work session related to that. If you have any questions, certainly open to it, and I may ask Mr. King to reply as well.
Super. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Beasley and Mr. Welch, thank you. And we'll open the floor for discussion. Okay, no discussion. We'll proceed to vote. Oh, let me break my. It's testing you. No. Mr. Golden, do you have a recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Yeah, thank you. Now we can move to vote. Mr. Mitchell, can we get
I vote in favor of this change.
Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. School board voted to approve the general purpose school fund public school safety grant in the amount of $1.7 million. Next item on the agenda is board policies for first reading. First policy is charter school authorizing principles. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the first of 6 proposed policies from the Tennessee School Boards Association to address the details of charter school applications, approvals, evaluations, et cetera. This is first of 2 readings based on our policy that addresses how we choose policies.
Do we have a motion for approval? Ms. Clemens, thank you. In a second. Mr. Cash, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. If no discussion, Mr. Golden will accept your recommendation.
Recommend approval.
Thank you. Board members, let's cast our votes. Mr. Mitchell?
My vote is to approve. Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. With that approval, we pass the charter school application first reading. Next item is charter school agreements. Mr. Golden.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think the next item is actually charter school applications.
Yep.
Item 2.
Cross that off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charter school applications, this is the one board policy that's actually been in our policies up to this point regarding charter schools. So we have some proposed adjustments based upon the TSBA recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Mr. Priya, thank you. And a second? Mr. Welch, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. Okay. No discussion. Mr. Golden, what's your recommendation?
Do recommend approval.
Board members, let's cast our votes. And Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The board just approved charter school applications. Next item on the agenda is charter school agreements. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Third item related to what I've already discussed.
Thank you. We'll accept a motion. Mr. Priya, thank you. And do we have a second? Mr. Beasley, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. Looks like no discussion. Mr. Golden, what's your
We
recommendation?
recommend approval.
Thank you. Board members, let's cast our votes. Okay, Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passed to approve charter school agreements. Next item is charter school oversight. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the policy related to oversight once a charter is approved.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for approval? Ms. Priya, thank you. And a second? Mr. Beasley, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Golden, I was wondering, with these new policies, I mean, these are the first readings, and you know, we generally always go to a second. But just for the purpose of the folks out here, can you just kind of give a rough overview of why we've got 4 new policies here?
Thank you, Mr. Cash. The Tennessee School Boards Association makes recommendations to school boards for policies, sometimes in compliance with the law and sometimes recommendations just to make sure that the work flows appropriately. In this example, the Tennessee law detailing charter schools is pretty extensive. And traditionally, we and many other school districts across the state have had one policy. The TSBA is recommending that we add multiple policies to address each section of a charter school process, whether it's the application process all the way potentially to revocation in policy. I noticed that these particular policies actually have a lot more citations to the law at the bottom of them than they typically do, and it's largely because of that detail of the law. So the intent and recommendation of TSBA is to have the detail of that process in each district's policy manual, so it's easier to find.
Sure.
Thank you. And we have some comments from Mr. Mitchell. Can't hear you yet.
My apologies. A couple of clicks to get off of mute. So, Mr. Golden, does this new oversight policy prohibit us from abdicating our oversight responsibility and passing that on to the state on any given charter school where we feel like we, for instance, if we vote twice to deny it and the state overrules us, and then we feel like we should not have the responsibility oversight if we didn't recommend it to be in place first place?
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. My understanding is no, that in that setting, then it would become a state oversight, but I would like to double check with Ms. Osbrooks to confirm that.
Thank you.
Authorizer, then there is oversight by the Williamson County School Board.
Ms. Osbrooks, if the Williamson County School Board does not authorize it and it's authorized at the state level, then the school board does not have oversight responsibility?
Correct.
All right. So we don't have that by default, or we have to take action to pass that responsibility back to the state, oversight specifically.
So the way that the new or updated state school board rule reads, Mr. Mitchell, is that if Williamson County Board of Education authorizes a public charter school, then this board would have oversight in certain parameters. If there is a charter school application that is denied twice by this board and then authorized by the state of Tennessee, then the state of Tennessee would have similar oversight parameters. So it really will depend upon who authorizes the public charter school as to then who has the oversight responsibility.
So I'm ask one more clarifying question, if I might, Madam Chair. Ms. Albrooks, what I heard you say is that the state would also have oversight. Does the state have solitary oversight in that case, where the district board had denied it twice and the state approved it, then then oversight is removed from the local board and is solitary at the state level? Is that correct?
Yes, I do want to clarify one piece. If the Williamson County Board of Education denies the application twice, there is no oversight by the Williamson County Board of Education,
Okay.
regardless of what the state commission does with the application.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was really my question.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. If there's no further discussion, we'll accept Mr. Golden's recommendation.
Do recommend approval.
Board members, let's cast our votes. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. That motion passed to approve the charter school oversight policy. Next item on the agenda is charter school intervention and revocation policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the second to last of the proposed policies for intervention and revocation, and certainly open any questions you may have about this one.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve? Ms. Apria, thank you. In a second. Mr. Welch, thank you. We'll open the floor for discussion. Okay, no discussion. We will get Mr. Golden's recommendation and then move to vote.
Recommend approval.
Board members, let's cast our votes. Mr. Mitchell?
My vote is to approve. Thank you.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passed to approve charter school intervention and revocation policy. Next item is the charter school renewal, final policy in this set. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the policy that's really the opposite end of the spectrum from the revocation policy, the charter school renewal process.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Welch, thank you. Ms. Apria, seconds. Thank you. Open the floor for discussion. Yeah, looks like we have no discussion. Mr. Golden, your recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Sorry, we have some discussion. Just, yeah, Mr. Wimberly.
Just as it flashed there that there's a letter missing in the word performance in one of the headings.
If I may, Madam Chair, we'll do a double check on typographical errors leading to the second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I might have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. And this kind of goes to the intervention and revocation as well. So I'm assuming the .904 and the .905 policies are only for charter schools that we have approved and have oversight for within our local district. Can I get clarification for that, please?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to just make sure, just for clarity's purposes. Yes, you got clarification, and the answer is yes. These only apply if we are the authorizer.
And providing oversight for them, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Golden, your recommendation was to approve.
Recommend approval with that typographical correction.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we can move to a vote. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, and that motion passed to approve the charter school renewal policy. And next item on the agenda is approval of board parameters for the school calendar for next year. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our annual agenda calls for you as a board to approve the board parameters for next year's school calendar year after year. I will give you a little bit of a synopsis of the discussion at the work session. There was much discussion about the parameters that the committee itself uses. And with the emphasis on an instructionally sound calendar. We've also had a little bit of discussion about the holiday periods. And so based on the discussion, we do not have any particular parameter recommendations for you, and the memo reflects that.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Golden. Do we have a motion to approve? Thank you, Ms. Cleveland, and Ms. Clement seconds that. Thank you. And Ms. Cleveland would like to discuss that matter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Do we know when this calendar will be going out? Are we expecting it before the holidays?
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. I'm trying to remember the schedule off the top of my head. If I may, January? It's on the annual agenda for January. There have been times where we've been able to get it done before then. And so to your point, I'll have that discussion with Dr. Webb, who chairs the committee, and ask about that schedule and make sure that I give you all notice of their projected time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Discussion. Mr. Golden, you have a recommendation?
Do recommend approval.
Okay, super, thank you. Board members, we can proceed to a vote. And Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Your vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Motion passed to approve board parameters for the school calendar for next year. And our final agenda item is superintendent's goals and objectives for 2023-2024.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had discussion about the proposed superintendent goals, which actually in my contract are described as system goals and have a deadline of October for establishment of them. So we're a month ahead. We've tried to get these done a little bit ahead so that we can get to work on them. And based on the feedback that we had at the work session, we've broken the recommendation up into 3 main sections with 2 recommendations for transportation. 1, a short-term recommendation, and 2, a longer-term recommendation. And I want to specifically mention that because that was just based on the discussion. What I am proposing is that we have a pilot where we look at a region and make some substantial changes in a region, in essence, to see if there are ways that we can improve the speed of our service, trading out some of the convenience, and see how that looks before we make a system-wide recommended change later on in the school year. Also related to that, the recommendations as a whole, we've added in some time deadlines for you as well.
Super. Do we have a recommendation for approval? Motion, thank you. Mr. Cash, thank you. And do we have a second? Mr. Priya, thank you.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
I think we've only discussed one item. Are we approving this by paragraph or as one?
Oh, as one, the entire.
Okay, well, it seems like we ought to get Mr. Golden's comments on the rest of the goals and objectives.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. So I started with number 1, our strategic plan execution, and I mentioned to you all that really we know that strategic plan drives us. Think back to the community input sections and meetings that we had. I can't remember how many total. I think it was maybe 19 total community meetings when we went through the process. So I've become convinced that our number 1 annual goal needs to be related to the strategic plan. In essence, the core of this recommended goal is to have an action step process largely with community input. I let you all know at the work session that our leadership team met and looked at each one of those individual objectives, and 16 out of the 28 objectives, if I'm not mistaken, it became very apparent that the right thing to do was to have community input to help establish those action steps. So that proposed goal reflects that. And we'll have action step plans. I got to share this one other little piece since I got the prompt. When our leadership team met on these, we had to keep on reminding ourselves, because we got anxious to get to the work, that this is a 5-year plan. And we want to make sure that our community is engaged in each one of these that really demands and calls for community input. And finally, that's a substantial change from what Williamson County Schools has done in the past with our strategic plans, making sure that we have that community input, not just at the beginning, but throughout our process of reaching those goals. Safety planning is our number 3, and we talked at the work session about that being a fundamental core area that we need to concentrate on every year. The state has increased funding for us this year in really an unprecedented way. And we felt like it was important to have a goal specifically related to safety. We've had many conversations about student safety and the important layers of safety. You've often heard me say there's no substitute for people. And when I say that, I'm talking about our SROs, about our law enforcement officers. The state of Tennessee, for the first time universally, has initiated some funding for SROs. That funding actually specifically goes to our sheriff's office. $75,000 per building that they can staff with SROs. I signed off on that. That was a requirement of the sheriff's grant, and so it's really a team effort. But we want to make sure that the work that we can do with the funding we have from the state is focused on what we see as our next most important layer that needs work, and that's access control.
Mr. Mitchell, did you have some questions? You're still
I
muted.
did. Let me find my mouse and get off of mute here. So 2 things on this. I would ask, Madam Chair, that we put in a calendar reminder to review these goals mid-year and make sure that that we don't need to add something else or that they haven't changed. We know that that as we set goals at the beginning of the year, sometimes by mid-year, end of the year, our priorities and that we thought we were going to have been changed. Second thing, and this has kind of been a continual point of mine that I haven't really been successful, I don't feel like I've been successful at achieving, is that I believe that these goals need to have evaluation questions. When we do Superintendent Golden's evaluation at the end of the year, we need to have questions specific to these goals. And I don't think we've ever had that, frankly. So I don't suggest that we change the evaluations completely, but at a minimum add our ability to give feedback specific to Mr. Golden's work accomplishments, heaven forbid, shortcomings on these goals through the year. Thank you.
And I know you asked Mr. Cook a question about flexibility to amend that. Yeah, at that time when we established the evaluation tool, that's certainly on the table.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And Mr. Welch?
Thank you. So I think these are well thought out goals with, some measurable metrics being added in here. I like that we have the safety planning in there. Nothing more important that we can do than make sure that our kids are physically, mentally, emotionally safe. But I think I'm going to vote no on it just because, again, it's missing the academic goal on it that I mentioned. And I think we need to have first things first on it and we get too sidetracked with, I think, things that maybe generate more noise than our equivalent in importance. And we need to remind ourselves as a board and system what really matters, and it's the academics of our students. I would say, at the very top, with their physical safety maybe being the only thing. So with that missing, I'm just going to vote no on this one. But I hope we can add that in maybe a little bit later.
I may, Madam Chair, thank you, Mr. Welch, for mentioning that. And our team did have some substantial discussions about that since our Thursday night work session. And I will tell you, our work is focused on exactly what you've talked about. We talked about some of those examples that the board discussed at the work session, third and fourth grade retention law, ACT, and what we concluded was that those have such a strategic element to it that we needed more team members get together rather than name a specific goal without having the appropriate stakeholders involved. But I do want to mention also our schools each have individualized school improvement plans. We call them SIPs. Everything goes by an acronym. And I'll make sure that we share some of those examples about what we've been discussing with our principals for specific goals related to the school as well. And we'll be following up on that because I think you've got a really strong point that we need to make sure is always on our minds.
Thank you. And if I can just follow up real quick, I'm glad you said that. And so let me make sure to clarify, too, that this was not meant to imply that you had taken your eye off the ball or staff had, and that wasn't the priority. That's not the case. I know. I know quite the opposite. I just think, again, it needs to be stated in here to represent sort of the actions that I know you and the staff are taking. That's all.
Welch. Mr. Wimberly?
Yes, to Mr. Welch's point, our strategic plan is full of language about academics. So with the strategic plan being the primary focus for the superintendent, I don't think we're coming up short on academics as far as this is concerned. And I'm sorry, but to Mr. Mitchell's suggestion, I don't think it's a good idea myself to open up the goals mid-year. These goals are a rather tall order, and I don't think we can move the cheese in the middle of the year. Now, what I would suggest instead, that whether it's at the middle of the year or more regularly, that we get a definitive report from Mr. Golden on where he is toward accomplishing these goals, and that we do that mid-year rather than opening up the goals for a possible change. Thank you.
To that point, Madam Chair, in the event you all approve this, I do plan to give you an update in November, in 2 months.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think these goals look very reasonable, Mr. Golden. You came back and had some different planning. I believe, I agree with Mr. Wimberly, the academics is there. It's ingrained in our system. So I don't think we're dropping the ball on any academics with this. And a lot of the noise out there is traffic, structural stuff that's going on. So that's very important too. So I think this is a good plan to go with. One other thing, after we vote, I have a concern I wanted to bring up. So don't just close us down. All right, thank you.
And Ms. Clements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say thank you for adding this immediate goal for the transportation. I mean, everything we do is related to learning and education. And, I expressed at the work session a deep concern for our bus situation, because we have kids missing the first period or first and second sometimes period of the day. And I mean, for high school students, if they're enrolled in AP Calculus, you just can't miss 2 months, 3 months. And so my only ask, and I know I'm fine with this November 23rd, but if you can move this to the front burner, and I mean, hit it hot, and let's get these kids, let's get a big plan in motion, because by November 23rd, if we wait, I mean, November 2023, if we wait to the end of that, we're almost at the first semester, and that's, so let's do the best we can on that.
Thank you for that. We all know at the board level, and anyone who sends their children to on a bus knows that we have a shortage of bus drivers, and our neighbors have a shortage of bus drivers. Superintendents and I at our annual superintendents meetings last week with the Tennessee Department of Education talked about that, about staffing. And the difference with this goal from where we have been is look at a particular region to see if we can move the needle in one spot as opposed to just in a handful of spots. So thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, board, for your discussion. And we will proceed with a vote. I guess we can accept or take Jason's recommendation on his goals. Yeah.
I do recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Board members, let's cast our vote. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My vote is to approve.
Your vote is 9 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. The motion did pass for superintendent's goals and objectives for 2023-2024. And we had a request. Is that?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay. No. No, sir.
It's not on the agenda. You guys have already approved the agenda. It's not on
Well, it was a concern about what happened tonight. It's not something to vote on or anything. I just wanted to. Okay, thank you.
There's.
The question was, do you have any objection of him speaking on the topic that's not on the agenda? Correct.
Well, it's just a concern. I'm just very concerned that I feel like this board was used to project to thousands of people in a recorded session and pointing at one board member in particular about his employment and some of the issues there. No matter how you feel about it, pro, con, or whatever the subject was, it had nothing to do with this board. And I feel like folks came in here and used this board to send a message out. And I think that's very unfair that that happened to a board member here tonight. And I'm concerned about that. I don't know if we can kind of go over what's going to be discussed a little bit better. But I think it was wrong, and it's all recorded. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, board, for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Welch.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Cash saying that. I think that was very appropriate, and I agree with it. And maybe this is something that we can bring up in a work session then and address that as well.
If I may, Madam Chair, that potentially is a topic we can discuss at Policy Committee meeting. There is a new law related to public comment, and we do have some flexibility in that.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. And thank you, Mr. Cash. Both great comments. Okay. Board, thank you so much for your participation tonight, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.